The Ready Set Grow podcast is sponsored by Ag Expert, software designed for Canadian agriculture. Visit them today at agexpert.ca.
Good morning. Welcome to the Ready Set Grow podcast, where we interview innovative people and companies in the agriculture and food sector. My name is Joe Dales. I'm one of the co-founders of RH Accelerator. Today we have our super guest host from lovely Regina. Hi, Diana Latrones.
Hi there.
And our guest is Brian Foster, one of the co-founders at RH Accelerator. Brian, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Good. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell everyone what RH Accelerator does.
Again, thanks for having me this morning. Nice to meet you, Diana. Fortunately, I do know Joe and Michael. My background is in software. I'm essentially a serial entrepreneur. I've started a number of different companies, primarily focused on managing large recreational facilities. My last venture, we were the largest supplier to universities and college recreational facilities in North America. I was fortunate enough to sell that company back in 2017 to Constellation Software, which is a large publicly traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange. I stuck around with them for a little while, learned all the tips and tricks of their successful operation, and then over the years recognized that there was a real opportunity in London and area to help companies grow and scale and tap into the resources and the expertise that I had built over a number of years. And partnering with gentlemen such as yourself and Dave Bilson to create the RH Accelerator. So as you are aware, we launched that in May of 2018. And since that time, we've been assisting companies with operational excellence, with some business acumen, opening up our networks to them, a large group of mentors to kind of give them that leg up. But at the end of the day, I think our core message at RH is that we're founders for founders. So we can walk along with them on their path to success.
What type of profile of early stage companies do you guys look for?
Well, over the last number of years, we've actually spent a lot of time fitting the Roundhouse Accelerator into the ecosystem that currently exists in London and area, and broadening that as well up into the Waterloo and Kitchener and Guelph area. We typically target companies that are a little farther along the path. They typically have, revenue, and that will range depending on the stage of their company. They have a product that's in the market. They have clients that have kind of purchased their product or their service. We tend to focus on technology-based, innovative companies, and we certainly like companies that typically have a higher recurring revenue. Those typically are kind of our strengths. We look for different verticals that we have expertise in, as well as a broad network, certainly one of them being agriculture, food and beverage, mine, recreational wellness, enterprise software, digital media, social media. Those are typically the areas that we play in right now.
Brian, do you want to describe, how we work with a company?
So, typically, we've attracted, different companies in different stages, and we do a quick overview or blush of where the company's at, figure out whether they fit into our particular, model, whether we can help them. Once we've kind of gone through that process, they can be accepted into our program. Our program typically lasts somewhere between 9 and 12 months, depending again on the specific company. And we help them with, we do a strategic overview of their company. We look at their financials. We look at their legal structure. We look at their R&D structure, sales and marketing. And then we look at a particular plan that would best suit their particular path, and then we wrap around a program with them. So we have standardized programming, which would be beneficial to all of our companies, but then we also look at the specific needs of that one company, and we put a plan in place for them. And so that typically is somewhere between 9 and 10, 12 weeks. But because we are early investors in those companies, once you join RH, you're kind of in it with us until that event occurs down the road, where they have their exit or some type of a liquidity event.
I was wondering about the type of programming that you guys have. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, it's funny because it is a bit more customized, but we'll have guest speakers, experts that'll come in and talk about something very specific. That could be financial metrics. It could be storytelling. It could be, sales and marketing tools. We have partnerships with accounting firms and legal firms that will come in and do review of, proper legal structure, proper tax efficiency. We will look at, there's a lot of things that we do. Those are probably typically what we focus on. And then we also partner with other, technology leaders in the ecosystem, and we will kind of collaborate with them as well. So when our partners are also putting on different programming, we will see if we can kind of insert our companies into those opportunities as well, and vice versa. And we try to make it a well-rounded program over the year.
Mhm. So if you had one idea about what contributes to their success, what would it be?
Well, that's a hard one, because it's very, very specific to the company. We typically really focus on who the founders are, and whether we feel that they're a really good fit, with their ability to deliver on what they're trying to achieve. So we do focus a lot on the founders, because our focus is that founders for founders. We like to think that we go along the journey with them. So because we've been through it before, all three founding partners of RH have been at this for quite some time. We like to think that we can shorten their runway to success, just because we can help them avoid some of the mistakes that we typically would have either encountered or run into ourselves. We can also open up our network and get them in touch with key mentors as well that can also kind of accelerate that. So the idea is that, can we find good leaders who we believe that can execute on their plan, have the vision for what they're trying to achieve? Can we tap in our expertise into that, and then facilitate that and kind of shorten the length over time? I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what our focus is. I mean, we're not that different than other accelerators, where they look for quality product offering, a total addressable market, all those typical things we will look for, but we do tend to focus on who the founders are and whether we can really assist those founders.
Brian, do you want to talk about where RH fits in the whole startup ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, and also discuss a little bit about some of the learnings that you've taken and adopted from Y Combinator?
I would say that in the ecosystem, we typically take the handoff from that early stage, and we are that first investor into those companies, the early stage investor. And because there is a real gap that we see existing between those early incubators and then that first larger round of investment that many companies are seeking, and we really see that there's an opportunity that exists in this area, much like what we saw happening at the Y Combinator, which is a model that we really like, that exists out in Silicon Valley. They typically take an early position in companies, invest a little bit of money, put them through their programming, and tee them up for that next level of success. And I think that's really where our strength lies. One of the reasons why we've looked at and have just recently launched our new RHA fund, which I feel is a really important piece in that gap that I was referring to.
So are you guys looking at people coast to coast, or specifically to, within your local area, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think when we first started out, the idea was that we would love to see, London's ecosystem continue to, be elevated or lifted. I mean, we are all London based. What we're finding is that, what we're doing here, I think can be used across the country. And as we continue to grow our presence in the kind of ecosystem, what we're finding is that partnerships are starting to evolve across the country. And I think that our model and our expanded reach is starting to take hold. We recognize that we had hoped, I guess, that could have happened. We weren't sure when we first started out. And I think London is a great place for companies to be and to grow. But I also feel that there's many other kind of mid-sized markets that are across Canada that are underserviced for what we are offering. So yes, absolutely, I think it will continue to expand.
So how do you find these companies? Do they come to you, or do you get them through referrals, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of them. When we first started out, we did more of a soft launch, I would say, just to kind of test the water to see what opportunities were out there. And we certainly had a number of inbound and generally a little bit more local. What we're finding now is that with those partnerships that I'm talking about, you're starting to get those referrals. So it is a lot of word of mouth. It is a lot of a reputation. I also believe that because we're raising a fund, that will also attract additional individuals. And then, of course, our current companies also talk to other companies, and that also really helps. And then all of us individually are out in the ecosystem in some shape or form. So whether we're members of other organizations, whether we're guest speakers, whether we're sitting on panels, all those things are really contributing to people becoming more aware of RH. I think we're getting a variety of different companies in different stages. The trick for us is really making sure that they fit into kind of our wheelhouse. And I think that will increase and improve over time as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about a couple of the things that you look for in a company right off the bat?
Well, what I had earlier said was certainly the leadership team is very important. It's not the be all and the end all. What we find is that there's often a great deal of domain expertise, so they know their stuff, but what they're really looking for is maybe some, experience, some operational experience. So that's certainly an important part about it. But there's two components. It's we really like that recurring revenue. We really like the idea of you build it and then it'll just continue to churn and be successful. The other parts of it, a really good market, but can we help them with our network and our connections? Do they have a good quality team? And is there a possibility for a large recurring revenue piece? Those are probably the three that stand out to me.
Perfect. Do you see any challenges with your approach or with the companies that you supply this to?
Challenges. This is a tough one because I think it's a little bit all over the map. Some of the founders are very receptive to guidance and input. Others sometimes can be a bit more resistant to it. Some like to, learn on their own, and which is fine, and we will help them get that through that. I often say that, that, when companies are first starting out and they're growing, they're very focused on revenue and building, whatever it may be. And everything in between tends to, not get a lot of attention. Either they don't know it, they don't have the resources to address it. So that's really where the challenges lie, is how can you get them to where they have some of that operational excellence that I was talking about. So focusing on governance and better financial reporting and proper agreements and, their IP lockdown. So those are really where the challenges are. And how can you help those companies get to that point over a period of time? They're a little bit all over the map. And it's difficult for us to get them to keep focused on that, of course, because what we're really focused on is them growing their revenue. That's the most important thing. So yeah, those are probably the areas that we struggle with the most.
Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about the RHA fund and who's investing in it and any process innovation that you've brought to that?
Yeah, so when we first started out, we recognized that there was the need, to create an entity like the RH Accelerator in the London area, because I do feel that there's some real strategic advantages of being here. But we did recognize that there's a gap in access to capital, and this isn't unique to London. This is very common across certainly the tech ecosystem, where that early money, more friends and family money, runs out fairly quickly, and then you're trying to get to that next level. And in order to do that, you're typically out there pitching, more organized capital, such as angel networks or private equity. And that's a little bit too far down the road. And companies just need that earlier amount of money, which usually sits somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000. That would give them a much, a longer runway in order to increase their revenue, put some structure in place, and then be ready to go to that next level. So we launched the fund, the RHA fund, very recently, in order to look at investing in that range. So between $100,000 to $150,000. And really, the investors are those that are okay with some higher risk, feel confident that the fact that these companies are affiliated with RH are having some oversight and some guidance. So we'd like to think that we can de-risk those investments a little bit. But it's also giving them the opportunity to spread those investments across, a variety of different companies. So very much more of a mutual fund approach. And we feel that it's an untapped market. Not a lot of people want to play in this space, but I think with our background and our expertise, we really feel that there's an opportunity for some success.
Do you want to share one of the stories of one of the companies that you had as a success so far?
Well, we've had a number. Probably the one that's the closest to me is a company called Factory Bucket. They have built a cloud-based ERP system, which is an enterprise resource planning system that they have launched in conjunction with General Dynamics Land Systems here in London. So it's a large Fortune 500 company. Factory Bucket was very fortunate to sign an agreement with them. And, they were young, somewhat inexperienced, but had really good drive in order to make this successful. So I started to work with them on some of the things that I spoke about earlier, just some structure, some operational excellence. And then I also assisted them with that early fundraising as well. And what I found was that level of money that helped them continue to get along, so that at this point they continue to broaden their product offering, where not just the London General Dynamics London is utilizing this system, but it's to be implemented across all 11 locations for General Dynamics Land Systems Global. They were successful at winning a Global Innovation Award with General Dynamics as an entity last November, which was fantastic. And now that product is being entered into the manufacturing sector across southwestern Ontario. So it's been maybe a little slower than they anticipated, but it's been a really nice kind of success along the way. And I think they've really benefited from RH's involvement. So it's been a really good journey, and I continue to be involved with them as well.
That's great, Brian. If people want to connect with you, how would they find you?
Well, both individually, I'm located on the RH Accelerator online. So we have a great website, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well under Brian Foster with RH Accelerator. I'd love to connect with people. And if people are interested in the fund, it's a separate entity, but you can reach out to me directly either through LinkedIn or through the RH Accelerator website, and I can facilitate you learning more about the fund as well. So,
thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Diana. Thank you, Brian, for an interesting session of the Ready Set Grow podcast.